I mentioned earlier in the program, but according to the Labor Department data released today, rising inflation surged past expectations in June to 9.1%. That's the highest in more than 40 years. Now, the president says fighting inflation is his top priority, but the actions of his administration certainly don't reflect it. Join me now to discuss this and more is Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa. He is the ranking member on the Senate Judiciary Committee, but he's also on the Senate Finance Committee. He was a part of a press conference earlier today with Republican colleagues speaking out on this issue. Senator, welcome back to the program.
I'm glad to be back with you. Thank you for having me.
Always good to see you, Senator. So your reaction to these latest inflation numbers?
Well, let me speak from the standpoint of Iowa on two respects. Number one, I've been hearing about cost of living and inflation at each one of my county meetings. Did 17 of them last week. And this is number one on people's minds. So after 9.1, even when we thought earlier this week it was going to go down, now it's up dramatically. I'm going to hear more about it. Secondly, latest figures say that it's costing Iowa families $670 a month more than when President Biden became president of the United States. So they shouldn't be talking about increasing taxes or more spending, feeding the fires of inflation. They should stop this Build Back Better effort that Schumer's trying to promote once again. And I hope Manchin and Sinema will stick fast to their previous opinions that we shouldn't be feeding the fires of inflation.
You know, the president says that focusing on inflation is his top priority, but his actions tell us a different story. I mean, every time I hear the president speaking, he's talking about trying to get abortion pills into people's hands. He's talking about, his transgender agenda. He's talking about the left's social and radical energy policy through the Green Deal. What should the president be doing to get a handle on this?
He ought to be reversing the policies that he put in the first few months he was in office. Half of this 9% increase in inflation is directly related to his energy policies. And his energy policies is to shut down the production of energy in the United States. And when you have less of something, you're going to pay more for it. So if you want to get prices down, produce more. And we got the capability of producing more energy and biofuels and alternative energies of all kinds. But in regard to the energy you put in your car, he wants to stop that. So look at how silly it is that he's on his way, or maybe he's in Saudi Arabia right now, asking them to send us more oil when we have it right here. You can't stop drilling and put more regulations on fracking and tell the banks not to loan money to energy companies and stop pipeline building without dramatic and drastic reaction in the economy. And you're seeing it now with 9% inflation. So just reverse that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not hard. It just takes a little common sense and willpower to stand up against the radical left. Before we run out of time, Senator Grassley, I don't think we've had a chance to talk since these historic Supreme Court decisions, the one overturning Roe v. Wade, the one regarding religious freedom with Coach Kennedy. I want to just say thank you. You're now the ranking member, but you were the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and you played a major role in leading to the current makeup of the court. I mean, this has to be a gratifying moment for you, despite all of the other stuff we're talking about.
There has been very dramatic movement that 6 years ago when I sat on Garland not having a hearing so he could be on the Supreme Court, not knowing that Trump was going to be elected, but following the precedent of that Democrats set that a new president ought to pick the people for the Supreme Court. We got Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, I chaired, and then when Senator Sessions or Senator Graham was chairman of the committee, we got Barrett. And so we got a 63 court, and that shows up in several very important decisions: religious freedoms, putting clamps on bureaucrats through the West Virginia case, and then you've got the abortion case, and quite a string of victories. And I'm glad to be a part in getting the Supreme Court to what it is today.
Well, and as you mentioned, the nominations made by President Trump, and that's because you had a lot of pro-lifers that were voting and got involved in elections over the decades. President responded, but again, you and Senator Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader, making sure that these judges and justices were a top priority for the Senate. So I want to, on behalf of pro-life Americans, Senator Grassley, I want to thank you for your leadership.
And I've had a pro-life voting record my entire political career, and I'm proud of that because I think life in the womb is very much worth saving. And it's a shame that we devalue life the way it does, because that carries over to life outside the womb, that it's going to be easier to devalue that, any life. And no person of religious convictions of any kind, but particularly born again Christians, should be aware of the fact that, and they are aware of the fact that life is precious in the womb or outside.
You're absolutely right. You cannot disconnect the two, and we've got a lot of work ahead of us, and look forward to working with you to continue to build this culture of life in our country. Senator Chuck Grassley.
We want to thank you for what you've done to promote pro-life issues as well, because you've been there as long as I have been doing that.
Well, I appreciate it. Always good to see you, Senator. Have a great evening.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.